Hi everyone, my name is Mehnaz and I head the undergraduate services at the Red Pen. Today I'm joined by Niki from Wake Forest. Thank you so much, Niki, for being here. What are some of your popular sports at Wake Forest?
Soccer tends to be really popular right now, but I think football as well. We just have that kind of big every other Saturday in the fall. Students gather for tailgating in the football games. But then also, like, our women's field hockey team is amazing and has won national championships. And our golf teams, both women and men, golf teams are great. Men's tennis won a national championship a couple years ago. So again, it just makes for a really fun environment, and you see the athletes all over campus because we're small enough that they're not going to be kind of on their own. So
have you ever had any Indian athletes recruited?
We actually have both our tennis teams last year had and they graduated last year. We had the #1 male tennis player from India, the #2 female tennis player from India.
Wow, that's so exciting! I get such a thrill when I hear about these Indian students being recruited to some of these selective colleges.
It was great. Yeah, they were both Indian. So I think one of them is trying to go pro, and so we'll see. So hopefully, we wish them the best.
Another thing I think I would love to hear your opinion on, and which has been on the top of our students' minds, has been this whole sudden change that our students have been facing with the pandemic and this transition to online studying, and then the last 6 months going back to in-person classes. And what we have eventually seen is that there's been a dip in the students' grades. Now, I know that Wake Forest, being a very selective college, is obviously going to pay a lot of attention to your data points.
Sure.
How would you say, are you changing your evaluation process a bit this year, or have you done so in the past as well? That would be really nice for you.
Great question. I'm so glad I'm here to reassure students because Wake Forest went test optional in 2008, and that means that the SAT exam does not play as much of a role in our process, or it doesn't hold as prominent of a position in our process because it is optional and students can decide whether or not they want to submit it. But it also means that we're trying to get to know students and trying to understand the context from which they come. And so that's one of the reasons we travel. We get to know India and understand where students coming from. We get to learn about CBSE and ISC and IB and all A levels and all of it.
And I'm going to come back to that curriculum choices.
And so, I think we try really hard to get to know students in our process, and we always have. So for Wake Forest, we haven't changed much because we always have really strived to get to know students and to understand their backgrounds and to hear their unique voice in the process instead of relying on kind of just numbers. And so for us, not much has changed. I will say we are all human in our office too. Everyone had a different experience with the pandemic, and we certainly read with a sympathetic, empathetic lens, because we know that some students were very affected and some students were not as affected. And so I think it's important though that students share their story and not be shy to make sure to let us know what might have been their context during the past 2 years.
So again, a word of advice to students out there who have perhaps had a dip in their academic scores in the last couple of years. As Niki said, it's a great opportunity for you in your application form to demonstrate why this did actually happen. And so the admissions officers can actually view your application with that context in mind. Again, Niki, coming back to the curriculum that we were talking about, in India, as you already know, we are blessed with multiple curriculums that students can choose from. And this is a very common question that we actually get from our 9th graders, 8th graders who are making that shift. Should we actually move to an international curriculum like IB, IGCSE? Do you think when you're evaluating an applicant, the choice of curriculum plays a big role in your selection process?
Absolutely. In that, we want to see that students are challenging themselves.
Right.
So as long as it's a challenging curriculum, and that can be different things for different people, that's fine for us. And we have had so many different types of students come to Wake Forest. And you have to realize that American universities, and Wake Forest in particular, we value diversity. We value different types of thought, and we value different ways students were taught. And so I don't think there's one curriculum that is necessarily better or worse to prep for an American university. But I think at Wake Forest, we've had students come from all different backgrounds and do well. They just have to come with an intellectual curiosity, with a strong record, and with an open mind to maybe how an American university might be a little different. So, and at Wake Forest, we do provide a lot of support for students. So any student coming to Wake Forest, we have a first year seminar, a writing seminar that are mandatory for students, so that it helps students really adjust to the level of Wake Forest and kind of put students on the same page, whether they were an A-level student or an AP student or an IGCSE student. So it just depends. But those writing seminars and first year seminars really help put students on that same page, and really helps set students up for success, because then they know what student or what professors expect at Wake Forest.
Right. I think for everyone out there actually hearing it directly from an admissions officer, that it really doesn't matter what curriculum you're following. It's actually how well you're performing within that actual curriculum that really matters, and that sets you apart from your peers as well. And I guess it's also very important within the curriculum that you're choosing, the importance of your subject choices, right, that actually set you apart. In India, again, coming back to our traditional curriculums like ISC and HSC, which traditionally mean that students have to choose a pathway. We see a lot of students who are not so good at math actually giving up on math and sciences very earlier on. And especially in the US, I think there's a lot of focus on math and lab sciences. Even if you want to study subjects like business. If you can shed some light on how important math and sciences are if you want to study at a college as selective as Wake Forest.
Well, I think, the first thing is to really inform yourself what a business major means at every institution. I know when a lot of students describe their interest in business, sometimes it sounds more like a communications major, right, or a marketing major. And so I think to really understand that business does mean a lot of math and a lot of analytics. And so certainly having that math course in high school will help students have a leg up and really understanding their strengths and when they come to Wake Forest and when they start that major. But I will say something a little controversial in that at Wake Forest, we kind of see students as starting fresh. So students are not allowed to declare their major at Wake Forest until the end of their second year. So a student could theoretically come to Wake Forest without math in high school, have the first 2 years to really make sure that business is the right course for them, and declare that major at the end of their second year. And so it is actually possible to not have math in high school and still be a business major.
Right.
Now, it might be a little harder because you do have to have that kind of step up, but I still think it's possible, and with the right kind of guidance and support, a student could do that. And so that's important for Wake Forest, is that we really see coming to college as a fresh start, and that you can kind of take advantage of all the opportunities, dive into a passion, but also discover new ones. And then you make a really informed choice when you do declare your major.
So Niki, what you're telling me is that if you actually saw a student applying to Wake Forest and they didn't actually have math as part of their curriculum in the last 2 years of high school, that wouldn't be something that would have you discount that applicant totally at all?
Not even a little bit.
Wow, okay, that's really great to hear.
In fact, in our application, we ask questions about students' interests. One of our questions is, what piques your intellectual curiosity? So say a student didn't have math but had done something business related in an internship or in a project, that would be a chance for the student to describe their interest and still make sure that we understand how they're thinking. And so it does look a little strange sometimes when a student is interested in a subject and doesn't mention it at all in the application, but we give the students the voice in the application to be able to answer those questions. So whether it's through supplemental essays or a video or an interview, students really have a chance to demonstrate what they're interested in. And so, but you do not need to have math in order to be a business major at Wake Forest.
Lovely. And from that point, coming back to extracurricular activities, more often than not, one thing that we try to tell our students at the Red Pen is that do things that you're passionate about, do things consistently, rather than looking at breadth of activities, look at depth. Is that something that you would validate, Niki, as well?
Absolutely, and I would say never do something just for the sake of writing it down on your application. It's pretty easy when you review over 1,000 applications a year, which students are being genuine and which students are kind of trying to just fluff their application. And so do something because it lights a fire in you, do something because it has meaning in your life, do something because you're trying something, and don't be afraid to kind of do something you might not like, you know? And so, but never do something just for the sake of putting it on a college application. That just doesn't add much in the end.
Moving on to another component of the application, which is our essays, and I like to say that for our high school students who are currently in the 12th grade, this is the only real thing that is within your realm of control.
Exactly.
I'm sure as admissions officers, you must be reading gazillion essays every application.
That's an accurate number, yes.
But I also have to say that whenever I've spoken to admissions officers, they always say that this is our most favorite part of our work. You love to get to know the students through their essays, and I like to say to my students that this is your place to actually create your own identity. Tell the admissions that you're thoughtful, you're purposeful. If you would like to share some advice with our students how to tackle these essays and how they can set themselves apart, that would be great.
I think the biggest mistake students make is the biggest mistake students make are too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
And I think that as long as they present an essay that's really authentic to who they are and genuine and sounds like them, then that's the best thing possible, because they'll land at a university that is a good fit for them. I always tell students, if you're not funny in real life, don't be funny in your essay. Yeah. If you would not use the word ubiquitous in real life, don't use it in an essay. And so, just be genuine to who you are. And if I would write your essay and kind of work on it and think about it and sleep on it. Don't rush it, I think also is another good advice. And then have someone who knows you read it, maybe not for critique, but just to see if it sounds like you. And I think the best written essays are the ones where a person can say, I could just hear your voice in my head when I was reading it. And so, there is no bad essay topic, but I think that it is the chance for students to really reflect and to grow and to really show the university why they're a good fit for each university.
Absolutely. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but over the last couple of years, has there been one particular essay of an applicant that is still so many?
Absolutely. I mean, well, it's so funny because we have a supplemental question, and and one of our questions that's been on our application for years is give us a top 10 list.
Right.
And so, I think the biggest mistake students make is kind of repeating things from their application in that top 10 list. And so, for example, if a student loves golf and it comes through in the application and they write top 10 golfers, that's not a very memorable answer because I've already learned that about the student. But one student once wrote top 10 words that are fun to say, and it was a funny way to show her kind of she loved literature and she loved words, and so I just thought it was a really fun way for her to get her personality across. And I still remember one of the words was gubernatorial and obsequious, and so it was a really fun list. And I don't know why that's one stuck with me, but it actually made me sit and read it out loud.
Wow!
And that, if an applicant can make you do that,
waiting to meet that student when they came to campus,
and they did come to wait for us, and so and she was from Bermuda. I remember that.
Oh, nice. So
but
there you go, students. You have to make sure that the admissions officers want to meet you in person. Coming back to a little bit about Wake Forest per se, what is very unique, and I'd love to know myself a little bit more about, is your general engineering program. And Indian students typically want to apply for engineering. So this is something that is really unique. If you can talk to our students a bit about that.
So Wake Forest has an engineering program. It was actually founded by 4 professors, 3 of whom were women. The chair of the department is a woman. She used to work for the National Science Foundation. And so it's a really unique approach to engineering. It actually has a brand new facility in downtown Winston-Salem. And so Wake Forest is kind of set apart from the city. And we took these old warehouses and made them into a brand new state-of-the-art engineering facility. Also, some of our STEM programs are housed down there, but also our medical school. So there's a lot of interaction with STEM down there.
Right.
And students can take a bus back and forth. So there's no need for a car or anything like that. But so they have a brand new facility. Now the department has grown, and it's just, they have so many different professors of different backgrounds of engineering. And so students really get this broad overview of all different types of engineering. And it's kind of cool because the national average of women in engineering programs is actually 17%. Wake Forest is up to 40%.
Oh,
so
wow.
You can see it's just a very balanced approach. And that doesn't mean that students can't specialize in a kind of their passion. They can take, independent studies and do research and work with professors to find their engineering niche, but it is a general engineering program. And you still aren't allowed to declare it until the end of your second year. So there's still plenty of time to do a study abroad experience. You still have to take a literature course and an art course. And so there's still that foundation of liberal arts. And I think a lot of students are attracted to it because it just has a little bit more balance to it, and it has a really broad overview. And it's not for every student. Some students might want that kind of one focus of engineering. But I think for a lot of students, it provides an alternative where they can explore a lot of their passions and still have a very kind of rich college experience of the liberal arts.
Yeah. And coming back to something that you just mentioned, your study abroad. I know that's a big part of your student experience. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
It is. It's we're ranked 4th in the country for study abroad, for percentage of students that study abroad. So about 76% of our students study abroad. We own homes in Vienna, Venice, and London, and so students have those opportunities to study there with a Wake Forest professor, with Wake Forest students. Some students want to be a little more adventurous and go on their own. We have programs for that. So we have study abroad advisors that help students find the right program, and every major allows for a study abroad program, and it's just a big part of our culture at Wake Forest. Students tend to ask each other, like, where are you going, not if you're going. So it's a big part of our culture, and students from all different backgrounds participate in it.
It's truly an international experience. US, international, Europe, nice.
Well, it adds to the international flavor on campus. So even though Indian students already have this kind of global mindset because they're applying to the US, it adds a lot of our American students who come to Wake Forest are attracted to that global mindset. So
what's the percentage of international students?
It's about 10% at Wake Forest. And so that's a good number, but the more important number is that only 14% of our students come from North Carolina. So even though Wake Forest is in North Carolina, not a major city like New York or Boston or LA, there's still students coming from all around the country and all around the world to Wake Forest. And so it's not students that go home for the weekend. It's really a rich campus culture, and students from all different backgrounds come and share their cultures and share their backgrounds. And so that's one of my favorite things about Wake Forest, is that it attracts such a global community in a city like Winston-Salem.
Great. Thank you so much, Niki, for being here. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts and insights.